There is a thin sheet of nylon between you and the wilderness. That's it. That's the whole defense. A tent wall roughly the thickness of a shopping bag, held up by two flexible poles, that a curious raccoon could tear through in about 4 seconds. Tonight, tens of thousands of people will fall asleep behind exactly that, in bear country, in wolf country, in mountain lion range, and in the morning, almost every single one of them will wake up, stretch, and complain about the coffee, which should stop you cold, because that flimsy little wall is not protecting you. It couldn't. A grizzly weighs 3 times what you do, and could open your tent like a bag of chips. So if the tent isn't what's keeping you alive out there, what is? The answer is stranger than the danger, and it starts with a fact most campers never consider. The moment you unzip that tent, something out there already knew. Let's be blunt about your situation. Lying down, asleep, in the dark, you are an almost comically perfect meal. You're warm, you're soft, you're unarmed. You have no antlers, no hooves, no speed, no fur, and no night vision whatsoever. You are unconscious for 8 straight hours, breathing loudly, radiating heat like a small furnace. Any deer in that condition would be gone before sunrise. Meanwhile, most large predators are at their sharpest exactly when you're at your weakest. Dusk to dawn is prime hunting time for wolves, cougars, leopards, and hyenas. That's when they move, when they're hungry, when their eyes work far better than yours, and they are absolutely aware of you. A bear's nose is so sensitive it can pick up a scent from miles away, dwarfing anything a bloodhound can do. Predators can hear you rustling in your sleeping bag long before you'd ever hear them. There is no version of this where you sneaked into the woods unnoticed. You were logged, sniffed, cataloged, and dismissed hours before you closed your eyes. Read that again. Dismissed. Something out there considered you and moved on. Understanding why is where this gets fascinating. Here's the first thing most people get wrong. They imagine a predator sees a warm body and thinks food. That's not how hunting works. A predator isn't scanning for meat. It's scanning for a pattern, a specific bundle of signals it learned from its mother and refined over a lifetime. The right silhouette, the right sound, the right movement. Above all, the right reaction. Because prey does something very particular when it senses danger. It flinches, it freezes, it bolts. That reaction is the trigger, the thing that flips a predator from watching to chasing. It's why a house cat ignores a stationary toy and detonates the instant you drag it across the floor. Now consider what you're doing inside that tent. You're not fleeing, you're not freezing, because you never noticed anything to freeze at. You're not making a single sound resembling distress. You are an enormous warm shape emitting an unbroken rhythm of slow breathing, wrapped inside a smooth, unnatural pod that smells like plastic, sunscreen, sweat, wood smoke, and toothpaste. You match nothing. There's no silhouette. There's no panic. There's no chase to start. To a predator built to read fear and pursue flight, you are a blank page. And most animals are deeply cautious about things they can't read. In the wild, the unfamiliar is usually the thing that kills you. And here's the twist about that useless nylon wall. It may be doing more than you think, just not the way you assumed. It isn't stopping anything. What it's doing is hiding you. It breaks your outline into a smooth, solid, featureless dome, with no head, no limbs, no visible eyes, nothing an animal can lock onto and identify. It smothers your scent into a single muddled cloud instead of a clear trail. It turns a vulnerable sleeping mammal into an unreadable object sitting in the dark. The tent isn't armor, it's camouflage against recognition. Add a dying campfire nearby, that ancient chemical signature of the one animal on Earth that mastered flame, and the message assembles itself. Whatever this is, it isn't food, and it might be the worst thing in this forest. But confusion alone isn't the answer, because plenty of predators investigate strange things. What actually keeps you safe is something much darker, and scientists have now measured it. In one of the most striking wildlife experiments of recent years, researchers set up automated speakers at waterholes across a vast African reserve, wired to trigger when an animal walked past. Then they played different sounds and filmed the reaction: barking dogs, gunshots, the roar of a lion, the single most fearsome predator on that landscape. And, in among them, an ordinary recording of humans simply talking. Nothing aggressive, just calm conversation. The results were brutal. Across dozens of species, animals fled from the sound of human voices roughly twice as often, and considerably faster than they fled from the lion. Giraffes ran. Warthogs ran. Elephants ran. And here's the part that should genuinely land. Even the lions ran. The apex predator of an entire continent heard people chatting and abandoned its water. Not because of a threat display, not because of a weapon, just the murmur of human speech, which tells you something profound about your species. You are not merely unfamiliar out there. You are the most frightening thing in the forest, and that fear was earned over an unimaginably long stretch of time. Our ancestors have been killing large predators since before we had writing, before farming, before cities. We hunted them. We poisoned them. We drove some of the greatest carnivores that ever lived off the planet entirely. Cave lions, dire wolves, giant bears, gone. Every wolf, cougar, and bear alive tonight is the descendant of the ones that learned to get out of our way. The bold ones died. The nervous ones bred. That's not a metaphor. That's selection. Running for thousands of generations, quietly engineering an animal that finds you unbearable. And the proof shows up wherever that history is missing. On remote islands and in isolated corners of the world, where animals have had almost no contact with people, they behave completely differently. They don't flee. They walk right up, curious and calm, because nothing in their bloodline ever taught them otherwise. The terror isn't instinct, it's inherited memory, and most of the planet has it. Scientists have a name for what that produces. They call it a landscape of fear, an invisible map animals carry in their heads of where danger lives. And on that map, wherever people are, there is a warning sign. It changes when they drink, where they hunt, which trails they use. It even changes what happens to the plants and the smaller animals in those places. Your species doesn't just live in the wilderness. Your species redraws it. And every predator out there is navigating around you like a rock in a river. So why do attacks ever happen? Because they do. And the pattern in those rare cases is remarkably consistent. Almost never a healthy predator calmly deciding a sleeping person is dinner. Instead, the rules get broken in 3 specific ways. First, food. When a bear learns that campsites mean easy calories, the fear starts eroding, meal by meal. It stops seeing danger and starts seeing a vending machine. It isn't hunting you. It's raiding you, and you happen to be lying in the way. This is why every ranger in the world nags you about your food, and it's why the grim old saying exists that a fed bear becomes a dead bear. Second, desperation. A predator too sick or injured to catch its normal prey is a predator running out of options. The most infamous man-eating lions in history, the pair that terrorized a railway camp in Kenya in the 1890s, were later found to have serious dental and jaw damage. They didn't develop a taste for people. They lost the ability to hunt anything else. Third, and most common, surprise. Stumbling onto a mother with cubs, cornering something at close range, blundering into a hidden animal. That's not predation at all. That's a frightened creature defending itself, and it usually ends the instant it can escape. Notice what's missing from all 3. The calm, deliberate, healthy predator hunting a sleeping human simply isn't there, and the numbers agree in a way that borders on absurd. Across the entire recorded history of the American National Park System, with hundreds of millions of overnight stays deep inside predator territory, fatal attacks on sleeping campers barely register. You took a vastly greater risk on the drive to the trailhead than you take lying in the dark. The scariest part of your camping trip was the highway. So here's what's really happening tonight. In that tent, when you hear something moving through the trees and your heart starts hammering, something is out there. It found you a long time ago. It knows exactly how many of you there are, roughly how big you are, and precisely where you're lying. It has been standing in the dark, listening to you breathe, deciding. And the decision isn't whether it can reach you. Of course it can. The decision is whether whatever you are is worth the risk. Somewhere in the deep architecture of that animal's brain, passed down through 100,000 nights of ancestors who learned this lesson the hard way, is a single instruction. Not that. Never that. And it turns and it melts back into the trees, and you never know how close it came. That thin nylon wall isn't protecting you. Your reputation is. Sleep well.